But I'd like to congratulate the new sergeants, new lieutenants, and their family and friends. Like it's been mentioned before, nobody does this alone. We can't do our job without the support at home. I'd also like to thank our retirees from coming, specifically the men who gave up their time to come share some words of wisdom. So a round of applause for our board. And just so you know, I didn't tell you this, but you signed a waiver coming in here. That was actually your contract to come back for 3 years. So if you haven't noticed, go on the website. We're hiring retired officers back. And these are our first 4 going to 1st Precinct next year. Thank you. We seriously are hiring back. So one of my favorite quotes is from President Dwight Eisenhower when he talked about leadership. He said, motivation is the art of getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. And it sounds trite, but in reality, that's what we have to do, because as leaders, you're going to be able to order officers to do all kinds of things. But if they don't buy into what you're selling, they're going to do just enough to not get in trouble. So never forget that you have the power to order them to do things, but take the time to explain why it's important. And when I talked to you earlier this week, we talked about what leadership is. Leadership's a position of inconvenience. It's a position of duty and responsibility, and in many ways it's a burden. But it can also be rewarding. I'm finding that out every day, that as hard as my job is, it's rewarding, and you will find that too if you do this job well. You have the burden to make a difference in the people that you lead. There's an American psychologist named Frederick Hertzberg. He's well known for being a consultant for businesses, and he studied how do you motivate employees in the private sector, and he did surveys for all kinds of businesses, thousands and thousands of surveys. And one of the things that he found was that there's only 2 things that are on both lists of satisfiers and dissatisfiers, and that's recognition and the lack of recognition. So I would say, look for those opportunities to find your officers doing something right and document it. There's so many things we do in the Richmond Police Department that require documentation on when something goes poorly. A police vehicle crash, a use of force, a citizen complaint. All of those require you to do something. And you're going to have to do that. That's part of your job. Don't ignore that. But a big part of what I want you to look for is those times when officers do something well, and find ways to acknowledge that behavior. Catch them doing the right thing. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Stephen Levitt. He's an economist. He wrote a famous book called Freakonomics. I highly recommend it. And he talked about in one of his books, one of his family members worked for a dog food company. And they decided they wanted to help their employees, help their morale, and find ways to show they're appreciated. So for the first Christmas, they give every employee a turkey. And after they look at the turkey, the employees are happy. There's a bit of a spike in morale and productivity. And it works really well, so much so that the following year, they do it again at Christmas. But this time they notice there isn't that same spike, and there isn't that bump in morale. Things just kind of move as normal. And then the 3rd year, they say, hey, let's try it again. They give the turkeys out, but this time there's a positive, negative response. There's actually people who are saying, these turkeys are smaller than last year. What have you done? It's my right, it's Christmas, to get another turkey. And they saw a dip in morale and productivity. I mention that to say, as leaders, I don't want you to rely upon the pay raises we've gotten. We've got to be competitive, and that's a big part of helping with morale. But I want you to also look for those other things, those less transactional things that can make your people want to follow you. So please always look for those. And what Levitt said, because he's a consultant for all these other companies, and he said that the real trick is to get people to think what they're doing is important. to cajole them into thinking that, yes, this dog food company or Google or some other company means something. And it might be harder for people in a dog food company or even Google to be able to trick their employees into it. The key with us is we don't have to trick them. Not in this profession, and God knows not in this city. What our officers do is important. It is valuable. It is meaningful. You don't have to lie to them about that. Just tell them the facts, and they'll see it. And all the men on this stage, and for the other retirees and for the veteran officers in this crowd, you know if you've done this work in this city, you've made a difference. And I'll close with talking about my path. He couldn't be here today, but Max Macco was one of my sergeants. I started in 1999 in this academy, graduated in 2000, hit the streets of South Richmond with the goal of being a homicide detective. I certainly never thought I'd be in this role. But that was my dream. And after about 6 months, we got a new sergeant, and it was Max Macco. Max had come out of homicide. He was a fresh detective, getting promoted. And at that time, many in this room can attest, Bob certainly saw the changes. You didn't bother your sergeant. God knows you never wanted to be in trouble with your lieutenant, and I never even met with my captain. So you just dealt with people on the street. But Max took a liking to me and took an interest in me when I expressed interest in being an investigator. I remember one story. My partner at the time, I don't think he's here, but Lieutenant Shane Waite and I were in a beat car together, and we got a call at Swansboro Elementary for a alarm call. Now that alarm call came in probably 5 or 6 times a year, and we thought nothing of it. It's going to be another, false call. But when we get there, the door's open. There's stuff strewn out one of the side doors. So we start circulating the area. We find a guy who's not running, he's walking, and he looks at us and gives us that look that every cop up here knows when they see it. And he's sweating, and it's December. Now, I can't prove he was in there, but we wanted to talk to him, and he takes off running, and Shane is much faster than I am, and he caught him, but we brought him back. He had a warrant on file. And I thought I was going to be the slick detective and interview this guy. His name was Lewis. We bring him back to headquarters, and Max says, I'll set up the interview room for you. He records it for me, and I have the bright idea of seeing a VHS tape. And I think, all right, well, there's no cameras at Swansboro, and I'm going to trick this guy, and I'm going to even type up on one of the labels, Swansboro Elementary Camera, number 5. I'm going to trick this guy into confessing. And Max looks at me funny, but he doesn't say anything. So I go in there, and I'm doing my best, because I watched Homicide: Life on the Street too. That's what I used to like this. I'm doing my best Frank Templeton, and I'm like, talking to this guy, and this guy had been interviewed by more police than I had been, years I'd been a police, and he wasn't worried about me. So I start trying to get him to confess to the B&E, and I think, come on. I value honesty, Lewis, come on, just tell me you did it. And look, I got this videotape right here. See, it's Swansboro Elementary number 5, and you're going to be on tape, and it'd be better if you just confessed. And he looked at me and he said, play it. I said, oh, well, Lewis, the precinct VCR, because, we used to have VCRs back in the day. It's broken. Just come on, look, man, I value honesty. I'll work with you. I'll talk to the Commonwealth attorney. Just, you got to admit it. And he just said, I have a VCR at my house. If you play it, I'll tell you everything you want to know. So I walked out of there defeated, and Max could have laughed at me, but he didn't. The next time we had a shooting in South Richmond, there'd probably be 10 that night, and no detective was coming. So he said, you're going to do this one on your own, and he helped me with it. He took the time to show me how to do a photographic lineup. He took the time to show me how to take a proper witness statement, how to document that, how to find actual videotapes of the crime. And we were able to make an arrest. And I was later able to use that case file that he helped me build to go to the Major Crimes Division. And I asked him to come here today, and he couldn't, but I don't think I ever told him that story, how much he meant to me and how much he meant to my career. So everyone in these chairs up here today, you were all selected because you got something. You got something in you, some skills that you can impart to other people. And you can leave a legacy that way. Bob talked about legacy. You can leave a legacy like Max Macco did for me by taking the time to teach a stupid rookie how to do this work, this noble work that all of you have shown the excellence in. So please promise me you're going to do that. You got to do all the other stuff. You got to do all the costs and payroll and all the reports we're going to ask you to do, but also realize that you have the opportunity to change someone's career. And I'd ask you to do that. Thank you.